Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast. We are coming to you to help you get through the holidays. The episode name says it all, keeping it together during the holidays. I wanted to say keeping your bleep together during the holidays, but we refrained. So before we get into this, we want to thank you all for ordering the Forward Planner for 2024. We've had so many orders come in, and it's a great planner that you can still give it out for Christmas, New Year's, etc. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, jump on it. You can get it in time for the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm excited. A lot of people are ordering and enjoying it, but I think it's one of the best ways to invest in someone's future, to say, hey, I believe in you. Here's your planner, and let's make it happen in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. So how you doing, Ron? Holiday season here.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to listen to this episode as well. There's a lot going on. But I will tell you something, and this is a bonus, folks, before we even get into the content. I finally have had to embrace the fact that I cannot wrap a Christmas gift. I've tried, Kristin, multiple times. Yeah. I go through the whole process, buying tape, buying gifts. And then when I wrap it, it looks like, it went through a wood chipper or it's been left outside. So I am investing in Christmas bags, which I usually do. It's just this year I didn't even try. Yeah. And so there's your leadership lesson, folks. Just give up.
Well, I think, it's self-awareness. You've realized I've attempted wrapping gifts for numerous years. It hasn't worked out in my favor. So I'm going to go Christmas bag and some tissue paper. Don't forget the tissue paper, Ron. Yeah, it's a must.
And
if you're
by the way,
stick it in a bag, you got to put some tissue paper.
By the way, I just learned that. A few years ago. Like I put it in a little hole in my hand and pull it through, and it kind of worked. So I was proud of myself.
You've got it.
I'm growing, Kristin.
Hey, we all are. Ron, okay. One more question for you.
Okay.
Before we really dive into this, what is your favorite Christmas memory as a kid?
Well, it's going to be all about me, but it was the presents. Like, this is sad, but it was the presents. So my dad had a hiding place upstairs in a closet. I feel guilty. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if I've ever told him this. I probably have, but it was this racetrack. It's the electric cars. You would push them and they would go around. And I would get myself so excited. I couldn't hardly sleep. So my uncle, I happen to have an uncle who was only 3 years older than me. So we get upstairs. I find the stash where the gifts are hidden, and I couldn't help it. I went back and forth. I tried to peel tape off and all that. So finally I peeled enough back and used a pencil where I could peek, and I thought I saw a car, and I felt guilty as heck, but man, was I excited. So getting that race car set was probably the most exciting thing. Unfortunately, when you're that young, I assume you're asking me when I'm young.
I meant like
it wasn't
last 10 years.
Well,
yes.
When I got, that booty boot camp video, that was great. But when I was a kid, that was it. I hate to say it, it was about presents. It was about gifts. But I feel the joy my parents did, because I love giving gifts now. I've matured a little.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
How about you,
I
Kristin?
love that story. Well, I'm curious. Did you say how old you were with the train track?
Yeah, I was 24. No, it wasn't a train track, Kristin. I'm not a train track kind of guy. You know my personality. It was a racetrack. I told you I have an air fryer personality, not an oven personality.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted
probably
speed.
Said that because my son just got one.
Yeah, I wanted speed.
Speed, got it. Okay.
God bless your son, but I'm a racetrack kind of guy.
Hey, you know what? Maybe I'll have less heart attacks down the road. He's not out racing around.
That's true.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay, I got to give that back to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, because it made me think of, I got this Aerosmith album from my grandparents, and they lived in Buffalo. And it was the one with the udders on the front. I'm trying to remember which, Let It Rip or something like that.
If you can't see me, I'm in a look of shock. I just talked about a 6-year-old race car set And you're
I'm
talking
making
about
you look like a loser a little bit. You know what I mean?
Or what kind of kid were you? You're excited how old are you at this point?
Oh gosh. I would say 13.
Oh,
Yeah, all
okay.
right. I'm going into the double digits
I
here.
thought this was prepubescent. I didn't know we were going like
we can do different decades if you prefer,
Okay,
but
okay.
this is my second decade of life, and I got the Aerosmith album, and the reason it even came to mind is because I kept unwrapping it. Like my grandparents had wrapped it, my grandma probably wrapped it perfectly to where I was able to lift the tape and play it when my parents weren't around, because I knew that that's what they had gotten me. That's what I asked for. So I played it over and over again, and then I'd wrap it back up. So before Christmas Day, I probably listened to 12 plus hours of that Aerosmith album, and it was fantastic. I felt slightly bad also, but at the same time, it was glorious.
Okay, so in comparison, it's like I shoplifted a candy bar from a local store and you robbed a bank. Like
Right?
you opened it
that
and
one hits a little
re-wrapped it.
close to home.
Yeah, I know it did. So you
Oh yeah,
re-wrapped it.
multiple times.
Well,
It's a CD, so it was pretty easy.
I do feel better. And Kristin, only because this was such a bizarre thing that happened. I'm going to add one more quick story. I don't think it was Christmas time, but anyway, believe it or not, a record truck crashed not that far from my house. I mean, it was across, I grew up in a rural area. I've got an uncle who's always thinking. He jumps out and starts loading albums.
I figure. Oh my
So
gosh.
I got this album, AC/DC. I'm talking about the big album, the turntable album. And I'd never even heard of AC/DC. It was one of their very early albums. And when I first turned it, of course, my mom wanted to have a prayer meeting, like when you hear AC/DC. But I mean, I couldn't believe the energy. And, I always had a basketball thing fixed inside basketball, Nerf type stuff. And man, I would pretend I was in the NBA. I'd turn on AC/DC. I came out dunking.
Yeah.
There were some major games there. It should have been in the Hall of Fame, but
oh my goodness, that's incredible. I had a feeling you were going to say it was going to start scooping them up. It reminded me of there's an episode of Shameless and they're in Chicago, right South Side, and this meat truck breaks down, and they just all go to town and empty that thing out.
I'm going to be honest, Kristin.
That was your uncle.
I'm not going to say his name, but he's kind of a legend.
Oh my god!
In so many ways.
That's amazing.
But and he was also this superior athlete. So one time he was on the basketball team, and the scoreboard broke. The coach sends him out to half court, and he's juggling basketballs to entertain the crowd. I mean, that was just a beginning of his life. So
incredible.
Yeah.
Oh boy. People are like, I don't know what's going on with these two. Hey, you know what? We're reliving our glory days.
Yeah, we are. All right. We better get to the nuts and bolts.
Yes, let's do it.
So you've already said this, but the holidays are usually far from perfect. And I know we watch the commercials and it looks, just magical. Everything's wonderful. And then the family comes over or then you're in, sometimes when you go to the mall, you feel like you're risking your life.
Wow.
So it just becomes total stress on parents and kids. And people get cranky, irritable, rushed. Kids tend to misbehave a lot more during that time period because, we at least have history to draw upon, but real young kids don't. So they see this as excitement, but also chaos. But there's also the fun, the family togetherness, and there's all these good things that, can come about, but we do have to learn to manage it. And one of the ways I do it is, you and I've talked about this before. I know your favorite Christmas movie because we brought this up one time. But
yes.
I do try to take a break, take a breath, and watch a few Christmas movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you remember it, what was it, Ron?
Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
Do you remember mine?
Oh.
See, here we go, folks. Here we go. Enough said.
I shouldn't have set you up like that because I
know.
set myself up.
You did.
Because I don't think it was Christmas Vacation. I feel like
you
that
said
was
it was
the
your
top.
This is my memory and yours. You said it was your second favorite. You said I
After
almost. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Elf is your number one, right?
You're off the hook. It's Elf.
Okay. Okay, good. I was like, oh no.
But Christmas Vacation was my number 2. So
Yeah, it's good. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm going to,
Redemption.
we could go on and on, but I'm telling you, as far as a movie you could watch with kids and all that, I think Home Alone, the first one,
Oh yeah.
was so funny and brilliant. Like there was no movie exactly like it.
I agree.
So I still enjoy it. And the Christmas Story. By the way, Kristin, when was the Christmas Story film? Do you have any idea?
I'm thinking in the 40s.
Yeah. And guess what? You're going to be Googling this. And if you're listening, you're going to Google it. 1980.
What? Oh my gosh.
Google
okay, but
it.
The setting was supposed to be the 40s, right?
Yes.
Okay,
50s,
okay.
I think.
Or 50s. Okay.
But I thought it was this old movie, and it was,
that's
so creative. That could be my number one. I mean, it's just the fact that it plays, from daylight to dark all day, every Christmas. And my parents used to keep it on whatever channel, and it played so many times that I think it got a little old, but it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant.
No, seriously.
All right. So
okay.
I've got a story, Kristin. I hated to take, I'll tell you what, you go ahead and I'll decide if I'm going to tell the story.
Okay. All right. So let me just keep it. I want to give advice because I know we talked about how, just very briefly, how there's so much pressure on you during this time of the year to really, especially when you have kids that are younger, you want them to have this idyllic experience, right? I'll tell you one thing that's been really successful with just my kids and my family, and that's tradition. And it doesn't have to be this big over the top thing. But when we pull out the Christmas decorations, my 9-year-old son especially, but also my daughter, they remember exactly where I put it the year before. And so, that's this. This goes here. This goes on the mantle. This goes. And I'm like, wow, like that really means something to them. And so they're able to help me decorate. And that's such an exciting experience for them. And then also you can carry the tradition into what you do. It could be as simple as you make hot chocolate at home and go walk your neighborhood and look at lights. But doing that each year, it provides the family stability and something that they can rely on, that they know is going to happen year after year. And chances are that will be carried on in their families when they get older. So, and those are things that I just shared that are free, relatively free, outside of buying hot cocoa for your house, right?
Yeah.
So you can really make an impact on your family without having to spend a ton of money or bend over backwards. But I would say just creating those traditions and carrying them out, that is so huge, at least in our family and for me growing up.
I think that's so important. And I don't want to sound like the old guy talking about the young people, but I think tradition is something that is leaving our culture. And there's some, sometimes it's hip and cool to not be traditional, but there's some traditions that should remain, and they have remained through the test of time, and they need to continue. And making new traditions is great. I love the fact that your kids knew where the decorations went. And it's also has to be intentional. You have to set aside, it has to be important to you, or it's not going to be important to them.
Absolutely.
And I think that is very, very important. Like, we don't have enough, I'm in a divorce situation, but we do have some traditions that we do. And of course, where we go at different points in time. And my daughter lives here with me, and I put up 2 trees. I do stuff mainly to excite her, but she knows it's coming. I've got a little town that I light up.
Oh,
and
I love that.
Yeah. It's a trailer park, but it's nice.
Oh goodness. No, that's so critical. I have to share one other thing for if people that don't think that the tradition is important. I am teaching 7th graders right now, and we're studying over the year. We're studying 11 different books, and I started just printing off the cover of the book and then laminating it. And for the 3 weeks that we focus on one book, I had it pinned up on the cork board. 1 week, I didn't do it. I forgot, or I just didn't get the time to print it out and laminate it and bring it in. I'll tell you what, almost every one of my students says, "Where's the cover of the book?"
Oh,
And
I
I
love
was
it.
like, "Oh, whoa." Like that actually, they came in looking for that. Like that was that sense of everything is okay. We're doing the same thing. I expect that it's here. And I threw them off. So I had to bring it in the next week. But it just shows you, especially, and these are 13-year-olds, 12 and 13-year-olds, they need that consistency. It doesn't even matter what it is.
I had a very wise person tell me one time, one of the best things you can do is be predictable. And that doesn't mean, I know we love to be mysterious in life and all that, but there's things your kids need to know that you're predictable.
Yes.
And I think there's a longing for that. And that's why we see so much chaos in our culture. There's no tradition, there's nothing for them to predict. So they just do whatever. They're going to go with
Yeah.
something. And yeah, that's really cool. So, Kristin, let's take a quick little negative turn. We'll get back to positive if you're listening, but I do think it's important because we are our brother's keeper. And in the middle of us buying gifts and maybe having a wonderful time with the eggnog and hot chocolate and Christmas parties, there are people hurting.
Yeah.
And Christmas time has a way of amplifying psychiatric disorders, depression, substance abuse, people who do not feel some of the things that we're talking about. Maybe they don't have traditions. Maybe they've lost family members. Maybe there's other things preventing them from being in a good, positive environment during the holidays. And then they're watching all these ads and commercials and with everyone else in the perfect world. It amplifies everything in their life. And when I became a cop, I was having a conversation. We were actually in the dispatcher's office, and you kind of like when you live in a mountainous area and it snows, the world shuts down, it's sleepy, it's quiet.
Yeah.
And we were in the dispatcher's office, and the other deputy, who was older than me, he said, "Well, brace yourself. We always get a few suicides this time of year." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh, always. I kid you not. We are having this conversation. The dispatcher gets a call, and she looks at us and she says, 'Okay, I'll send deputies.'" And she hangs up the phone and says, "You're not going to believe this. It's a suicide." So right when we're
Wow.
having the conversation, and that story in and of itself was a very challenging one. Um, I'm not going to go into the details of that, but it was on a mountain. The police car with chains on could not get up to it.
Oh,
We
yikes.
tried to get the ambulance that usually takes people, for the coroner to examine, could not get up to it. So me and some other people in uniform try to carry a body. This person weighed about 300 pounds.
Oof.
And it was a nightmare, Kristin. Like I can
Yeah.
still see it, getting that person from the house. And there's a lot of other, I guess, what you would call collateral factors that in this particular case. The only thing I'm going to say, this person had lost his wife a year before or 2 years before, and this was an elderly couple. They'd been married, and I know this is going to sound crazy in the country, but like he was 14, she was 13. That's how long they've been married. So the whole
Dear
story
Lord.
is bizarre, but they'd never been apart. Even when she was in a hospital, he sat beside of her. It really is. I mean, people don't understand the 13 and 14-year-old back in those days, but it really is a love story. And he'd never been apart. And when
Wow.
she passed, he did not want to be on the earth anymore. So
Oh, okay.
it was a challenging, difficult story. But the reason I wanted to put that in our show notes, Kristin, is the fact that, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but do try to be sensitive and just when you were talking about traditions, what a great tradition to teach your children to care about others or check on an elderly person or do something for a neighbor. There's not a better tradition that we can pass on from generation to generation. So that's why I wanted to add that. This is a delicate time for some people.
Right, right. No, I think that story is important because that's just the reality of life. And suicides have increased exponentially since 2020. And
Yes,
even
they
though
have.
that takes place a ways, a while back, it is important that we are understanding of that. And to your point, I just went to a For King and Country concert. And for those who aren't aware, it's like a Christian group, and they do a great Christmas show. And they're Australian, but they were talking about that. And I took my kids. That was their very first concert. They were talking about how important it is for the kids to understand the giving aspect of the holiday season and giving to the less fortunate. And I think that that's fantastic. So to think of a way, and you can get creative and think of, talk to the kids and work it out with them on what do you want to do to give back? What does this look like to you? And have them be playing an active role in that. I think that's huge. And it does teach them compassion for humanity. Doesn't mean they need to be a bleeding heart giving money to every homeless person they see on the street, right? I'm here in Portland. There's a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so we don't do that here. But there's ways that you can do it where it has a direct impact. Maybe it's a shelter, children's shelter, right? There's just so many things you can do. So I think that's fantastic, Ron. And I want your advice on something, and for everyone listening, how do we navigate these super hectic, frenzied days and still keep an even keel?
Well, I think we're going to
Even
have.
keel. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. Excuse me.
I
I'm like,
started
that
thinking
didn't sound
about.
right.
I started thinking about the meal. No, let's do this, Kristin. Let's give 10 keys that will help. Now,
Yes.
as always, we're solution minded. We don't have all of the answers because your dynamic, your family, your
Yeah.
stressors, the crazy uncle that's going to swing by or whatever. So, but these are some things that we believe that will help you. Some of this came from Psychology Today. In other sources, we always try to do our research. But so number one, let's do 10 of these.
Okay.
Number one, and Kristin, I want you to make sure your headphones are listening because this is for you.
Okay.
Pick your battles.
Oh, thank you.
This is probably not the time for you to have your political discussions, Kristin. I know you want to. No, I'm picking on Kristin. I love the fact that she's opinionated and with facts, and I am as well. But we have to recognize that there's going to be, I think family is so interesting because you have family members that you might see once a year. So you don't even know them, to be honest, in your adult life, but you're going to be around them. So it's important to do your best to just stay calm and try to pick your battles. And especially with your kids are just going to be a little more rambunctious this time of year. So, you might want to, I'm not telling you to let them buy with murder, but you might want to be a little more graceful during this time with those family members that annoy you. Try to just, let them chew the food with their mouth open, those kind of things. And I'm sorry, I'm going back to being triggered. No, you got to, it's risk versus reward. Is this going to help? Is this the right thing to do? And if you pick your battles, most of the time, things will go a lot smoother for you. And of course, you don't risk this, family explosion or maybe it's a battle at work. Maybe it's someone that annoys you or they didn't participate in the white elephant or the whatever Christmas and you're ticked. Just pick your battles. It's not a good time.
No, I agree. And it's really interesting because, as I mentioned, I teach the 7th graders right now. And my dad's a retired teacher from the Portland Public School District. And so he used to tell me he'd walk in with a lesson plan and he could read the kids. He could see they're pretty hyper today. And he said, I just ripped my lesson plan up and I went off really what the vibe of the kids is. Right. And so I did that yesterday when I was teaching. The kids were next level, that they're excited. It's the holiday season. They almost are on Christmas break. And I pretty much did that with a few of our subjects. I was just like, all right, we're going to end there and you guys can go draw a Christmas scene up on the whiteboard. And they just, sometimes you just have to do that. I could have been like, you need to pay attention, be quiet, everyone listen. But no, it's just, you need to understand, do you need to do this right now? If not, just allow them to carry on and make it a positive.
Yeah. Kristin, why don't you take the next one?
Yeah.
I think I took yours.
No, it's it's fine. You were directing it towards me, so because I really needed that. By the way, I don't have anyone in my family that is not
politically aligned with you.
Let me just say, yeah, thank you, Jesus. Everyone's on the same page politically. So, and I'm talking a family of like 50 plus. So, I lucked out on that one. That is very unusual. So I'm lucky there. So I apologize for those who are not. But this is important. So plan fun things. So shopping in crazed malls with a zillion people. I have to tell you, I lived in New York City for a while, and I made the mistake of we didn't really do Amazon back then. And then if I even attempted Amazon delivery at my apartment, it probably would have gotten stolen, quite frankly. Lived in Queens. But I went shopping on Christmas Eve in Times Square, and dear Lord, I never did it again. And it's absolutely insane. And that's the extreme. That's Times Square, right? But shopping in, like I said, crazed malls, there's a zillion people running all over the place. They're all fighting for the latest coveted toy. I still remember my grandma from New York almost got in a fight trying to get me a Cabbage Patch doll. That was a big deal. She's a New Yorker, so she came out on top.
Remember
that?
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think my grandma threw elbows to get me that Cabbage Patch doll. And it had the weirdest name. The only one she could grab was Darta Dorita. So literally. So, all right, cool. I still have her. I renamed her Patty Chris, just in case anyone's wondering. But yeah, so she threw elbows for that one. That was the New York in her. But things get crazy during the holidays. And so it's really important that you understand, your school age kids, they're going to be a lot more manageable if they can engage in a fun flick or movie, as most people would like to refer to it as, or a game, or just there's so many things that you can do for the family that would be considered fun. So think about that, put some thought into it. It's going to make your life a little easier during this time of year. And I think for parents out there, we're always so stressed about making sure our kids, I don't know what Ron's laughing about, but I'll get to that. Making sure our kids aren't on technology too much, right? We're always monitoring it. Maybe you need to have a little grace during this time. Okay, Ron, let's hear it.
Keep going.
Good Lord. He can't keep it together today. What's going on? What did I say?
No, you didn't say anything wrong. I promise. It made me think of, had a guy when Tickle Me Elmo was coming out. He said, my parents always do a spinoff. He said, I'll probably end up with Tickle Me Elmer. It was in the country. And I remembered him saying that. And I laughed so hard. I apologize to everyone.
No, I love that, because that happened to my husband. His family got him a knockoff, or someone in his family has two siblings, a knockoff Cabbage Patch doll. It was one like that. One of his dad's coworkers, she would like make Cabbage Patch dolls, like buy the parts and make them. And they have it on video where they're like, this isn't what we wanted. This isn't Kevin. And it was like some knockoff made in someone's basement, probably.
Isn't it amazing how smart kids are? They know if it's a knockoff. And,
is it the kids though, or is it the marketing where they know exactly what they're supposed to look like?
Very good point.
Both, probably.
Yeah. Okay, I'll jump in the next one. And this is self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but we are in a unique age, and there is no reason you can't connect virtually with family members who may be around the country. Now, I get it. If they're elderly, you may have to help them out, but I think it's so wonderful. My parents get to see my little grandson all the time through FaceTime.
Yes.
And as soon as we walked in at Thanksgiving, he goes, Mama, Papa, and he knew them because of that. But when you were talking about traditions, that's another way. Say, okay, we got to stop everything. We are going to connect with someone who lives in a different place. Maybe it's friends. You might share a toast with them. You can have a grandmother read a bedtime story to the kids. I mean, there's so many things you can do virtually now.
Right.
That is amazing. The ability to connect, but you still have to be deliberate. You still have to schedule it. You still have to take the steps to do it. So anyway, some cool things you can do virtually.
Yeah, no, there really are. And it made me think about in 2020, my dad got pneumonia. And he's a huge part of the kid's life. He lives here locally. What we did when we were all opening Christmas presents, we literally did that. We put the laptop right there, and he sat there on live stream with us for an hour and a half as the kids opened all their presents. So it was like he was there. So, but that's the beauty of it, is that you can do things like that. And it is important to say, this is important. I'm gonna do this. We're going to take the extra step and make sure that we connect, because it's easy to just say it's a nuisance or it's unnecessary, but the impact you're making by doing that is huge.
Yeah, my family's in Virginia. We saw them Thanksgiving, but we will not see them during Christmas. So we always FaceTime at some point.
I love it.
And why don't you take the next one?
Yeah. So this is very important. If times are tough, talk about it. So, and we're talking emotionally, financially. So the economy has gotten so bad and really worse. Everyone is feeling it, some more than others, but the holidays, they still remind working class families that luxuries they could afford maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, are sometimes no longer possible. So don't let that issue go unrecognized. Kids are going to notice what's missing. And in doing so many, in doing so, it may cause, basically, you need to address it. I'm just going to go right there. It's going to be something, especially older kids, in our household, for instance. Now, they're not going to notice too much, but I do talk to them about, I'm homeschooling you now. I don't work full time now. You're not going to get as much. And we made that sacrifice financially so that I can be home with you, right? Like, we have these conversations so that they understand the impact, and they're totally cool with it because they love having me home and they love that I play an active role in their upbringing and in their education. But if we didn't talk about that and really help them understand the why behind, like, I'm not buying you 400 Christmas presents, right? Like, you're going to get a really select 10 that you really want and you'll really use. Like, it is what it is. And I don't think it's going to be a non-event for the kids because we've had these conversations. And so really what we're saying here is talk about it. It doesn't have to be this big shameful secret. You just need to have conversation. Yeah. And that's don't you think, Ron, like, having those communication sessions with your kids, and it's going to really just open them up and set them up for a future where they don't have to feel shame about certain aspects of life.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that and agree 100%. And let's just move on into the next one. It's number 5, and it corresponds with what Kristin said. Try alternate ways of giving. In other words, if you're facing some financial hardships, and look at some alternatives. And I still remember this used to be fun. My mother had 10 brothers and sisters. Now, I think one passed early and a lot have passed since then. But the family was so big on her side that we would draw names. So, I might get an uncle, an aunt, whatever, and you bought the gift. And it ended up, when we would have pre-Christmas, like the 22nd, we would gather her side of the family and you would exchange those gifts.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. And I don't hear people doing that. Maybe they still do, but I don't hear that very much. But sometimes I think that was almost as fun, unless I got a sweater or something, when I was younger.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. The anticipation, I've got this person's name. So if you're experiencing hardships, maybe you do some things like that, draw names. The thing that I see, Kristin, that troubles me, and we're trying to guard that a little bit with my grandson because he's got families on both sides that adore him, is you get so many gifts that you can see the appreciation level, it's overwhelming and all these things. And I don't think it's healthy. And when I think back, I would have probably told family members, let's have 3, 4, 5 gifts for my daughters. Please contribute to their bank account. And I'm making sure that each and every holiday and other times that I'm putting money in my grandson's bank account. Trust me, when he's 18, he will not be able to name those 50 gifts that he got, but he's sure going to appreciate that bank account.
Right.
So sometimes we need to be realistic. And also,
I think that's great. I just, real quick, I just want to say, like, on that, Ron, What we did for my daughter for Christmas, or excuse me, for her birthday just recently, I knew she was going to just get inundated by the family. We have a large family. My husband and I, we bought her a new mattress for her bed, right? Like, and because we knew she was going to get presents from
Yeah.
everyone else. So
Yeah.
the only thing we got her was something useful.
That's right.
And did she notice? No. Does she care? No. She was well taken care of. So as the parent, you can control it easier by changing what you do versus what your family's going to do.
I shared a meme about protecting children. And I think any reasonable people that listen to this podcast understands that we can't give state control over our children. So I posted a meme, and it was pretty telling, but there was a little boy sitting there, and it was an adult with him, and said, "I'll give you $1 million or you can have this cookie." Didn't take the kid about 1.5 seconds. They chose the cookie. And that's very telling. So sometimes we have to make those decisions for kids. Yes, they want that particular toy, but they're going to move on. And the interesting part, and this was my grandson's birthday, that we couldn't help but laugh, but he started playing with probably the cheapest, simplest toy that he got.
Yes.
And you get all these high-tech things. So there's a lot to balance there. But anyway, try some alternatives, and don't buy into the pressure that your kid has to have as many presents as Billy down the street and all that. Think about their future. Think about their emotional well-being. Don't overwhelm them, and move on. Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely spot on. So something else here, be aware of worsening psychological suffering. So as we noted, psychiatric symptoms often worsen during the holidays. And it makes sense. Just like asthma gets worse with dust, the psychiatric symptoms, they worsen with stress. So people hear nothing but messages that they're supposed to be happy. And that message can make individuals with any psychiatric condition, mental health condition, suffer even more if they are already not doing well. So help your loved ones get that extra care that they need. And really don't hesitate to call a doctor. If there's major concerns about mental health, like suicidal concerns, you need to take that seriously. And that is something you want to spend a little extra time paying attention to if that's an issue with a family member or a couple of them, right? And so especially during the holidays. So those calls can really be life-changing and life-saving. But don't go what do they like to say, ghost, or don't go zombie or whatever on your family just because it's kind of a bummer to have family members that are depressed or have mental health issues. This is the time you really want to ramp up your engagement.
Yeah, keep your psychological radar turned on. We talked about body language and symbols. Now, you may not be with the person, but if you are with a person, you can tell a lot by their body language. So just keep your antenna up during these times. The next one, and this can tie into what we said, virtual, number 7 here is don't forget the people who are not there. And I know some people, as a matter of fact, someone that Kristin, that you and I both know, she just lost her mother last week. So that is a difficult time, and it's okay to talk about those things. Sometimes we want to gloss everything over with kids or whatever, but it's okay to have fond memories of that person. And you might want to take a little bit of time intentionally to do that, because I think a lot of times we don't want to bring anything up. But if you're hurting, acknowledge it, talk about it. But if there's people that are missing, that just live, again, virtual is a great way to connect, but just make sure that you do that. I have found I love stories. And again, I don't want to get too low here. I'll be very quick if you're listening. But I went in 2 weeks ago, did a celebration of life, and I did some social media posts about it. But this was something that I had no idea would happen. My daughter and I went, and I think I may have, if I told this, Kristin, let me know, but we went to the cemetery, and it's the Ward Cemetery. But my youngest daughter, had never been acquainted with death, nothing like I was. I mean, where I grew up in the Coalfield, I was surrounded by death. She has not been. So we get to the graveyard, and some people are talking like, this was your grandmother, your great grandmother Bethel. She was a school teacher, a phenomenal human being. Well, the next thing I know, Jansen starts weeping. She rarely cries. Now, she also felt sorry for me because she knew I was in the car with my cousin. It's in my book. People can read it in the book. It's a horrible story, but
Yeah.
I'd never seen her that way. And she wept. She and I left the graveyard to come back to South Carolina. And she wept a good bit, like 15 to 20 minutes. And then we talked memories, and I told her a lot of things. And I realized that was good. It was healthy.
Yeah.
And she needed that because she grew up here. She's not been around a lot of the family members. She didn't know a lot of the stories, and she became very inquisitive. And it was a wonderful, we talked and talked and talked. So that's very healthy. And even if you've lost a loved one, tell some great stories about them. Kids love that.
Yes, it keeps them alive. And I think that's amazing. It is important that we recognize our ancestors. I mean, even if it was hundreds of years ago, that's our flesh and blood right there. And so
That's right.
it's going to have that impact on you, whether you knew them or not. So I think that was a great response that she had, and very touching, actually. And I want to say something, and this is just, I've had friends that have lost spouses, and even, I mean, we're in our 40s, but there's something that happens when somebody loses a family member. They also lose friends. I don't know if you've personally witnessed that, Ron, but a lot of people don't know how to talk to someone who's just experienced loss. A lot of people are very uncomfortable talking about death, and they don't know how to act around somebody who has lost a family member. And so they steer clear. And, that's really a very negative way to respond. If you have a friend that has experienced loss of a child, a spouse, a parent, even a grandparent, even though they're probably quite old at this point, you don't want to go radio silent on them. It's really important that you put yourself in a position to reach out and be there for them, even if you don't know how to act. You
Kristin,
need to be available.
yeah, I do. I actually do training in my wellness training, and there's a dirty lesson in my book. I should have had the number, but it does say in a crisis, leaders show up. And
Yeah.
I literally taught that not long ago in a situation. I had someone come to me because there was a high up government official that had, the week before the conference, lost her husband. And people did not know what to do. 2 weeks, I'm sorry, but she came to the conference, and people were being all awkward and weird. So,
Right.
and I'm going to be honest, Kristin, she was in the audience when I taught this section, and I hated to do it, but I thought I can't alter my program. But I had people later coming up saying that really helped me because I didn't know what to do. And they did. I don't know if I did her a service because people were, definitely approaching her a lot more after
I think that's great.
after I taught that. And leaders don't understand when they get promoted, but you may end up at a hospital. You may have to notify family members that something really bad has happened. But Kristin, here's one other thing, and I think our audience will appreciate. I call it the 2-week rule. So when someone passes, it's chaos. People bringing food. I'm talking about in a normal situation. Everyone's calling. People comes to the wake, the funeral, the gravesite service, all that stuff. And then everybody leaves. And you're still in shock, but along about week number 2, it really starts to hit because, as you know, the 5 steps of grief and all that, we'll talk about that sometime, but people go through this grieving process, and then all of a sudden, no one's calling. So I try to check in with someone about 2 weeks after there's a death. And it seems to be that that's the time they're ready to talk about that person. That's the time they need to be checked on.
Right.
And I think, like you say, out of sight, out of mind, people just disappear. They ghost them. I went to the funeral. I did my civic duty, and now I'm on. So maybe give that some thought, people. If you know someone that's lost someone, maybe it's time to give them a call.
Yeah. And I want to plug in that I have a friend who lost her husband to a brain tumor, brain cancer. And gosh, he was only 39. But I I personally had to ask her, am I wanted to know when it was appropriate to be able to reference my husband when we're having a conversation, right?
Right.
Like that's something, because I am very sensitive to other people and what they're going through. I felt guilty saying anything about my husband. And she said, I had to ask her, when is it like, what will trigger you? Or basically, I was just asking her, what can I steer away from to help you out? She goes, nothing. I'm so sick of people doing that to me. I
Yeah.
want you to talk to me like you talked to me before. And so, that may be different for some, but that was really refreshing to hear, because she was like, everyone's tiptoeing around me and I hate it. So ask. If you don't know, ask them. And that really helped. And it helped me. I'll be honest, I reached out more frequently because I wasn't having to withhold different aspects of life
I'm so
from
glad
her.
you said that. That's so important to have those conversations. It's okay to ask.
Yeah.
People usually do not want to be patronized. There's a difference in showing compassion, but
Mhm.
it's happened. It doesn't change your reality. You've still got a husband,
Right.
and I like her answer, and I think that's been the consensus of people I've talked to. They're like, nothing's off limits. It is what it
Mhm.
is. They want to be treated normal. They're working through their own things, but
Right.
uh, it, if you don't know, ask.
Yeah,
It's simple as that.
exactly.
And that's part of, in my leadership training, I talk about getting to know your employees. You're not inappropriate, but you need to know the things that they respond to. And if you watch signals, if you'll listen to those 2 episodes on body language, you will learn that people will
Yes.
give you signals. You can see what's resonating with them, what's repelling them, and you can use that to your advantage and help build strong relationships. So,
Yes,
yeah, if you
absolutely.
don't know, ask.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just briefly touch on the number 8 that I was going to cover here is, don't let the ghosts of holidays past haunt you. I know I have a sister who was a drug addict for 10 plus years. And a lot of issues came to head at Christmas time, right? Because in a sense, she was being forced or felt like she needed to attend these family events, but everyone's around and we can see there's a clear issue. And I had my parents enabling her, and so I felt like I was the only one living in reality, right? So we have some ghosts in our holidays past, in our family. But my sister's now been sober for 7 years, and we've done a lot of forgiving, and holidays now are fantastic. So I guess what I'm saying here is, everyone's going to have their things, their right, that's happened in the past, and it's really important to be able to focus on the present and the future.
That's right.
And because otherwise, if I were to, think about, remember that Christmas when you showed up totally on drugs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we got in a fight on my porch, right? Like if I was to bring that up like every year, or even run that through my head every year, what a waste of space
No,
and
very
and
true.
time. So we let that go, focus on the present and the future, and we don't forget the past. It's still there, but
Yeah.
just really do your best to move forward.
And Kristin, I'm going to zip through this one quickly because we're running a little long on time here, but
Yeah.
keep the focus on gratitude. Gratitude needs to be verbalized. You need to remind your children, even when we were talking about the chaos of them getting all those presents, that, this is a blessing that we are able to do this. And we should always exemplify, talk about gratitude, and help our kids and the people around us see that, because they can start to realize, wait a minute, sometimes we start thinking about ourselves so much we don't realize there's other people that don't have what we have.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing negative about gratitude. It'll help every part of
Right.
your life. That intrinsic value of knowing I'm grateful for other people, friends, and maybe that's a tradition you want to start, and I'm sure a lot of people do this, but at Thanksgiving, we went around the room and said what we're grateful for. Is
Yeah.
it
Yep.
monotonous that I see some of the younger kids rolling their eyes? Yes. But because everybody goes, I'm grateful for my family. So
Yeah.
I always throw them a curve, tell them I'm grateful for that AC/DC album that uh, truthfully, keep the focus on gratitude. It'll serve you well.
You know what? That we did that at our family, and we did like a little, like it was like a spin chart. on how many things you're grateful for. So I think it left room for 5 or 6. And 2 of the men at Thanksgiving said the Second Amendment. I said the First Amendment. We didn't know each other were writing these things down. And of course, we said family. I was the only one who forgot to say God. Dang it. Right? I was like, oh, I look like a heathen right now. But so yeah, those things that's a fun tradition if you don't already do it. But I just clearly we have some.
That's a
we're
cool
pretty
idea.
thankful for the Constitution in my family.
No kidding. Take us home, Kristin.
This one's a big one because I think that I'm like speaking to myself with this one. Don't aim for perfection. We all see these Instagram reels and like how cool people decorate their houses and all these hacks on how to make your house look like the perfect holiday home. Or you watch like a Lifetime movie and it just looks like every single room is like Christmas maxed. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. But don't aim for perfection there's a whole array of things that you could be aiming for perfection with, but just knock it off. Let's live in reality here. Do the best you can. No dinner is going to be perfect. No decor is going to be perfect. There's always going to be something. And so show yourself some grace.
Yeah, no kidding. I could, we talked about gossip foreplay. I could do the Christmas foreplay and I don't know if it's foreplay or it's just the conversation, but it's always, I started to get you this. Do you think that's going to fit? You can take it back if you want.
Yeah.
I should have those conversations going on. I just don't do it anymore. I just here's the gift. I hope you like it. If you don't, let me know. You can send it back and I move on. We worry about things that no one's going to remember. Yeah. I mean, do your best and move on, especially when it comes to gifts exchange and things like that. So
yeah, exactly. Oh wait, I know we're up on time. I just want to share one thing. My husband and I have gotten in a fight like so many Christmases because I buy him something that he thinks is too expensive and he didn't spend the same amount on me, yada, yada. Gotten in so many arguments because I buy him cool like optics things. But anyhow, you know what I just did this year? Didn't buy him anything.
Now, wait a minute, Kristin.
And he'll probably be happy. I don't know. Maybe I'll get him a pan or something to cook his eggs in every morning.
Some socks or something. I mean,
some underwear. He likes to
You're going to feel guilty.
I know. I'll get him something. But he literally is one of those guys, doesn't ask for anything, gets irritated when you spend too much money on him. So it'll probably be socks and underwear and he'll probably be thrilled. So no fight this year.
In my love languages, and we should probably go into that sometime, Kristin, but I'm not gift receiving is not one of my languages. So my kids get frustrated, but I focus on giving them, and this is not me trying to be heroic. It just really doesn't mean anything. Now, if somebody wants to buy me a Bentley, that would mean something. But no, seriously, I don't care. So this is the beauty of me. And it sounds like Dave's the same way. If you got him, an extra pack of socks and, t-shirts or something, it's fine. Like that's fine. Cause I have people going,
totally.
I'm sorry I didn't get, I'm like, I don't care. Now, if you want to give me words of affirmation, tell me I'm awesome. I'll respond to that. It's like opening a psychological present.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, I'm going to give a little bonus on our exit here, Kristin. And if you've stuck with us, thank you. This one probably should have been first, but just try to remember you will never be able to repeat this holiday season. You will never have another Christmas Eve or you won't have this one again. You won't have another Christmas Day. So try to keep that in your mind that I want to lock this in my memory bank as something positive and prepare your family. Say it's going to get a little chaos, go ahead and say, we need to be ready for that. Aunt Louise that's coming over, she's weird. It's okay. Don't point it out. But I think we go in with a little bit of a plan. And Chris and I both are the Christian faith. And Christmas, even though there's tons of crazy secular things that have developed through tradition over the years, still for Christians, it's about the birth of Christ. And I think it's so important to take some time with your children, even if it's you all alone, and you read them Luke 2:10. And it says, and my problem was years ago, this was just the opening of a Christmas play for me, Kristin, and I realize it's so much deeper But in Luke 2:10, it says, and the angel said to them, fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And there is no greater gift than God becoming in human form and redeeming us. And it's also for all people. It's not just for Jewish people or, the way the Bible is written. It was very important, those words, because, the Bible, and then in Hebrew, there were Jews and Gentiles, but they realized this is a Savior for all people, not just our particular group. But I would say this season, there, as Chris and I record, there is a lot going on, and there is a war in the Middle East. And the Bible says, "Pray for peace in Jerusalem," and I do that, and pray that this will finish quickly, and the terrorist and evil will be removed, and there can be some semblance of happiness for the Jews and the Palestinian people, the innocent people, that they can go on with life. So, anyway, I wanted to add that in, Kristin, before we sign off.
Yes, absolutely. That was beautiful. I'm glad you did that. I don't have anything to add. You just covered it all. It was beautiful.
All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.